And we are back on the 980s podcast hosted by yours truly, Kevin Thompson, founder and CEO of 99 Capital Group. Thank you guys for joining me. As I always say, subscribe to the channel. As I always say, go and get my book, MLB to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at info@99capitalgroup.com. Send us your questions. Go to the website at www.99capitalgroup.com. Schedule an appointment. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, engage, and also entertain. Follow us on all social media channels at 99cap or at MLB to CFP. And subscribe to our Substack. Now what? Today we're bringing back a third time friend, Dr. John T. Harvey, TCU professor, talking about the economics of $39 trillion of debt. Where do we go from here? What does that mean for the consumer? What does that mean for the United States people? And are we in danger of becoming something that we do not want to become? We're going to have a long chat today, my friend. Dr. John T. Harvey, welcome to the show. Let's get it. We got Dr. John T. Harvey back on the show again. Hey, third time listener.
Right.
I love our conversations because we go deeper than most people do in regards to the economics of it all. And you and I both know that any given day, the economics can change in this current environment, which is very strange. But
yes,
hey, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being invited back.
Yeah. So my first question, and I know we like to kind of keep it like, just tight, but we have $39 trillion of deficit, right? In our current economy. So Japan, 200% debt to GDP,
right?
They're almost like a welfare state where they're just taking care of the older individuals in their society. A lot of government, government dollars going to that. Are we in danger here in the United States of America going more in that direction? Right now, I think we're like 120%, 130% debt to GDP,
right.
And we have an aging population. Is that our future, Japan? But by the way, I wouldn't mind having Japan's future because they got a pretty damn good railway system. I've never been there, but I hear great things.
Right. Well, that's entirely possible, but not because of the debt. I mean, it's because of the fact that exactly as you pointed out, they ain't real crazy about having a lot of immigrants. They're not having any kids. And the way that any kind of welfare system, public or private, has ever worked has been that the young have got to make enough goods and services for themselves, plus enough for grandma and granddad. So back, pre-Civil War in the U.S., when over half of the population were farmers, what was welfare back then? Well, grandma sits there, popping pea pods all day and honestly not really contributing anything, material to our level of output, but she's grandma.
Yeah.
And so being grandma gives her a right to sit at the table. But it's really, everyone else that's producing the output. So, I mean, you didn't ask about this directly, but I'm happy to shift into it. And that is with the immigration right now. I have said this for years. We should have what they call a guest worker program.
Okay.
Where, we have X number, I guess maybe farmers would say what kind of labor they need, and then the government would decide how many people get to come in and so forth. And then if we've got real high unemployment, well, we don't need as many guest workers because charity begins at home, and we want those jobs to go to our people. But I understand the Germans do this. They limit the number of people coming in and out, and it varies by the level of economic activity. So if we want to avoid Japan's fate, we need some more young people. I just turned 5 last month. I'd love to see us have a real strong, healthy, Social Security. The amount of money in Social Security is irrelevant. Social Security cannot possibly go bankrupt because Social Security is an immediate transfer of income from the working population to the retired population. I mean, so
Okay.
it's not like we have some money saved up. You know, when you put money into Social Security, they don't like set that aside and say, oh, you know, one day Kevin's going to need that money, so then
True.
we'll get that
True.
back out. You know,
Yes. Pay as
they
you go.
immediately give it. Yeah, they
Mhm.
give it immediately to my parents.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea of bankruptcy, it's mixing up the micro and the macro of it. The micro
Okay.
side is just me. And yeah, if I save money and put it in the bank, then it's that money I pull back out and spend
Mhm.
later. But when it's the entire macro economy, we can't really save, you know, I'm going to put aside a steak dinner for myself that I want to eat when I'm 75. I can't do that.
Hey,
Everything gets produced and consumed. Almost everything gets produced and consumed now. I mean, I could save a TV set, but
yeah.
probably in 10 years, TVs are going to be better than they are right now. I don't want to do that. So,
Yeah.
long story short, the level of the debt is not the issue. The issue is, just as you pointed out, with Japan, they've got this aging population,
Mhm.
I don't, you know, I don't know how they're going to get out of that without having some more kids or having some people move in. And we need to make sure we don't screw that up.
Yeah, and you said a lot there, and I hear a bunch of things. Like I talk about the farmers, and that's a whole other show for me because I know farmers, and we talk about subsidies and welfare
Right,
from that perspective. We can go a whole rabbit hole down that
right,
part there.
right.
But you're right. A lot of these other countries, and when it comes to immigration, are like the Nordic countries. They ain't none of that going on anywhere, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and we happen to be a country that does very well in that area. And if you think about it, I mean, well, we are producing GDP growth. There's something that can be said about what the immigration is actually doing for our society economically. But
Right. And I understand, you know, I'm an immigrant. I came
yeah,
here
we're all
from,
immigrants.
yeah, well, but I was born in England.
Okay,
So
okay,
yeah, I was born in England, and my mother and I came here. My dad's American. We
yeah.
came here to what's the name of the airport? Was it called LaGuardia before it was
Bella,
JFK?
LaGuardia,
Idlewild, Idlewild. It was
okay.
Idlewild Airport, but that's where I came into in October of 1961.
Hmm.
And so I understand, you know, wanting to be legal immigration and not illegal, and without wanting to get into the actual tactics being used right now.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but we need immigrants. All right, so
Hmm.
you know, okay, well, let's call it we
Yeah,
need legal immigrants. You know,
yeah.
whatever.
Well, I mean, you and I both know Todd and Jim and James at TCU aren't going to go out in there and pick up these watermelons. I mean, just call it what it is, right?
Right, right,
So,
right.
I mean,
So
yeah,
yeah,
there's immigration. There's things that are that need to happen. It just is what it is, right? And
yeah.
again, um, that gets a little that's a sticky subject to some.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you know, I mean, we shouldn't avoid sticky subjects either.
Yeah,
We got to talk them through. But you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
your original question was about the level of debt,
yeah.
and that you know that's not what's causing Japan a problem.
Well, so you MMT, I battle with this, man. I battle
Yeah,
with it because we have these government data. And by the way, I've been this every time I go to an event, whether I'm a speaker, whether I'm just in the crowd, you got these guys, and God bless them, they're talking their books, man. They have to, right? Oh my God, Microsoft just cut 8,000 jobs. That's going to be great for the business because the revenue is going to go up, and we're investing in them and doing
yeah,
this and that. And I'm like, well, hold. It's 8,000 jobs that are just lost right there. Like, what's going to happen to these people? Oh, well,
right,
they're just
right,
going to
right.
get consumed back up in the technology sphere. No, they won't. I mean, there's people that
No,
are
they won't.
struggling right now
Yeah,
that are trying to find. There's 6, 8 months out of work,
yeah,
and it's tough. So
yeah.
but that's where I struggle in this current economy because you got these people talking about 2.43% inflation rate and all this stuff. I'm like, stop it. Stop it. Atmos Energy, and you just saw Atmos Energy just raise their rates. I mean,
Yeah,
our
yeah,
homeowners insurance here in Dallas Fort Worth, guess what they're doing? Oh, we're
yeah.
going to raise your rates. And not only that, we're going to give you a 2%, 3% deductible in wind and hail. You know,
God,
yeah, it's
awful.
crazy, man.
Yeah,
You and I
yeah,
both know it. It's crazy.
yeah,
But I said all that to say this: we have an inflation problem. Whether they want to believe it
yeah.
or not, we have an inflation problem. Now, the CPI number, it's the rate of inflation. It's not actual inflation. It's the rate of inflation.
Right.
But what is your thought about the MMT side and the inflation side, and how are they talking to one another?
Well, let's see. I would let's do the inflation first.
Okay.
Right. So, and you're absolutely right. The rate of increase has gone down, but we
Mhm.
haven't had a decrease. You know what I mean? So it's not like we've gone back to the old level. So we've like
Yeah.
sort of gone up and then leveled off at this new higher plateau.
Mhm.
And the last time I can think of where we had deflation
Mhm.
was once after the OPEC oil embargoes and about a decade into it when everything had fallen apart,
Yeah.
oil prices finally started coming back down. And of course that eased things in all kind of other sectors because, you got to have, if I'm going to buy, I don't know, here's a candle. If I'm going to buy a candle, they had to ship this candle from wherever they make candles to Bed Bath and Beyond. That's
Yeah.
cost, that's gas. All right. So
Yeah.
so every time, fuel gets more expensive, it causes everything else to go up. The
Mhm.
other time was after the financial crisis, and the demand was so low. And so, well, let's not do that.
Mhm.
Now, inflation. Okay, so you said people talk in their books.
Yeah.
John T. Harvey just came out at the Cambridge University Press, and the hardest section in that book to write. It's on U.S. business cycles, but
Yeah.
so there's a long section explaining what causes the business cycle, and then
Mhm.
some stuff on inflation.
Mhm.
That was the hardest part to write, and I have finally come to the feel. I've been at TCU for 39 years.
Mhm.
Inflation is just really complicated
Okay.
because it can be caused by so many different things. And this whole approach we have with, well, the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates implies to people that inflation is simple.
Yeah.
But it's not. I mean, so what was causing the inflation? Oh, let's say in March of, I guess, 2022,
Mhm.
Russia invaded Ukraine.
Mhm.
That caused a big jump in energy prices because there's a lot of energy being pumped out of there, and in food prices because there's a lot of grain. So let's raise interest rates to stop that inflation. How is that going to? Why would that have an impact
Mhm.
on, because what we have is a shortage, is what
Mhm.
we had after that. A shortage drives the price up.
Mhm.
Now, raising the interest rate, the idea is to lower demand,
Mhm.
um, and that'll bring the price back down. Yeah, so I'm going to make you so poor you can't afford that food, and that way the price of the food will come down. That's not a solution.
Okay.
Interest rates, and my fifth or sixth version of that section of the book, uh, I go through all the different types of inflation, and then at the end of every one, so would raising interest rates have helped? And the answer every single time was no. It is
Mhm.
not an effective tool. So inflation is caused. If you break down and read over, like the book 1954, 2020 being our last recession,
Mhm.
um, and if you look at specifically what was causing inflation, it was the oil prices going up, OPEC.
Mhm.
And it was, oh no, there was a freeze in Florida that caused us to not have as many oranges. And so, or there was more recently, right before the election, what was that flu that was going around? It had a
Avian
word.
flu or
Avian
the
flu. That's it.
yeah,
That's
something like
it.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Bird flu or something
so
like that.
right. So Trump's going to come in and get rid of the flu. All right, because
Mhm.
that was the only way you were really going to lower the price of eggs,
Mhm.
unless you make people so poor they can't afford to buy the eggs. But clearly, that's not really a solution. That is treating a symptom. That is not treating the problem.
Uh,
So,
uh, but I
yeah,
got
go ahead.
so the same
Yeah.
thing can be said with them. So this is what I get confused on. We talk about raising and lowering interest rates. What does lowering interest rates really have to do with unemployment?
You know,
Honestly, I mean,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
they're
no,
gonna, you know what I mean? Like, well,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
gonna put more money into production and all that. No, they're not, because
right,
you just gave them the biggest manufacturing tax cut,
yeah.
bonus depreciation. So why wouldn't that create jobs? How is that lowering interest rates going to create more jobs when you just gave them a huge tax break? I don't know.
No, you're right. Interest
Yeah, am I
rates.
an idiot? I feel like I'm an
No,
idiot
no.
some days. Yeah.
No. Interest rates are a secondary, if not a tertiary consideration on the part of actual business firms. And this has been, so, I'm not a mainstream economist, all right? So,
Okay.
you know,
I
a
know
lot of what
you're the cowboy economist. We
that's
know, we
right.
know.
That's right. A lot of what I'm saying right now, a lot of my colleagues would disagree. Let me interject a quick anecdote.
Yeah.
Let me jot down what I was about to say so I remember it, right?
Yeah,
Follow
yeah,
it.
yeah. Go ahead.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Okay, we had a fella come in, and this links up to something you just mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We had a speaker come into our department about a month ago,
Mm-hmm.
and talking about the impact of AI on the labor market. All right,
Okay.
and this person was a mainstream economist, which was called neoclassical, is the
Mm-hmm.
mainstream school. Um, you know what he assumed away in his complex mathematical model? He
What's that?
assumed unemployment.
Okay.
He said, let's simply assume everyone gets a job. I was like, okay, that's what they're actually worried about.
Yeah.
So his whole thing was about how the economy would adjust if we operate under the assumption that everyone does get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And that is and I asked a couple of my mainstream colleagues in the department, I said, were you not bothered by that? They were like, well, trying to model unemployment is really complicated, and maybe we can worry about that later. So, okay, so the thing that is central to people is like, well, it's complicated. And they were also ignorant of the fact that, well, there are models already with that built in. You don't have to say, well, that's complicated. We'll figure that out later. So when I say I'm not a mainstream economist, I say that with some pride,
Mm-hmm.
because the kind of stuff I've heard them saying is just, what world are you living in? Going back to the interest rates,
Mm-hmm.
mainstream economics makes a big deal out of how important interest rates are.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, in their own empirical studies of the way the economy reacts, they find time after time that it's not that important, that it's
Mm-hmm.
not that big a deal. There's one article I cite a lot from a Federal Reserve Bank, I think Federal Reserve Bank in New York, where they like interviewed CEOs. And they said, how important is the interest rate to you? They're like, well, we'd like lower interest rates, but honestly, we're a lot more concerned about things like demand for our products, about the cost of labor, as
Mm-hmm.
you said, tax cuts. These are much more important to us than the interest rate. So the Federal Reserve, I don't know, I kind of feel sorry for them in a way, and I kind of don't. They've only got one tool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, they only use one tool. They actually have a lot of other tools. They just don't use them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the interest rate. So they have to find a way to justify the interest rate being important in any context. Back when Jerome Powell was talking about raising interest rates because of the increase in inflation, I guess sometime before the election, um, the Republicans and Democrats both were together saying, well, how is raising interest rates going to help us with avian flu? And so they could both. It was nice to see both parties together on something. They could both see the illogic of it, but that's not what the economic theory says. The economic theory says that well, inflation is driven by that. The economic theory is that inflation is driven by the level of demand for goods and
Mm-hmm.
services. So if demand is high, the prices go up. So how do we fix that? We lower demand. All right.
Mm-hmm.
But it is exceedingly rare that we actually get inflation caused by high demand. During World War II, we did. During World War II, we had 1 point something level percent unemployment in the US.
Okay.
And not only that, people had higher wages. Not only that, we were using steel for things like tanks and not for cars. So there were very few consumer goods. So what did we do? We raised taxes to keep the money out. We sold bonds,
Mm-hmm.
even though we did not need the bond sales to finance the war because we could finance it. We just make up our own money.
Mm-hmm.
But we pull money out of people's hands with the bond drives so that they won't spend it. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, if you look at, it's very interesting, if you look at the contemporary accounts of the bond drives, the people in charge of the bond drives kept saying, we're going to get those dangerous dollars out
Yeah.
of the system. All right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Okay. So
inflation.
no,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I got so back to but the question. So
Yeah.
you said that doesn't create inflation. So if I give you $100 right now that you didn't have, you're either gonna save it or you're gonna spend it, right? Most people are gonna spend it. So, because it's not Japan, people are going to spend it here in the United States, right? It's
Ah,
consumption. So, if I spend that, is that not creating a demand that was not going to be there if the dollar was not given away?
yes, but there are two things that demand can do.
Okay,
It can raise output or it can raise prices or some combination thereof.
I got you.
So
I got
like back during COVID when we gave people money, that was not inflation. There have been many studies on this already. It was not inflationary. That people use that money to buy stuff which they hadn't been buying before. So as long as we've got enough, this idle capacity, then at least some of that increase in demand is going to be an increase in output, which is, I mean, that's what we were doing during World War II. It's just that the problem was that we hit the wall on output, on the consumer output. There simply wasn't any more, because again, it was a really special circumstance in that, consumers had a lot more money plus nothing to buy. You weren't allowed to spend the money on stuff. So, in that case, yeah. But here's the other thing, by the way, Kevin, I think this is really important to think about with inflation that people often overlook.
you.
Inflation is always a redistribution of income.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is getting better off because of that money. The way you hear policymakers and economists talk about inflation, it's like we put that money into a sinkhole somewhere. No,
Yeah.
it went to somebody.
Yeah.
So during the terrible inflation of the 70s and early 80s, there was an absolutely a redistribution of income on the planet. It
Mm-hmm.
went to the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And in the United States, it went to the people who were in the oil and gas industry.
Mm-hmm.
But I graduated college in 83, and everybody was majoring in geology because the oil prices were so high and they wanted to get in on that game.
Yeah.
And then the oil prices collapsed, and you had people that had, master's degrees in geology working at Walmart, or
Yeah.
back in those days, Kmart.
Yeah.
You know, but
The
yeah,
old
so
K.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, the old Kmart, man. That place,
yes.
that place. Every time you went to Kmart, man, it was a wreck. I was like, whoa, there's stuff everywhere. It's crazy, but
And the
I
blue
lo-
light special. Do you remember the blue light special?
the
All
blue
of a
light
sudden, they
special.
had this little cart they'd push around with a light
Yeah,
on top,
yeah.
and for the next 10 minutes. Oh,
Talk about demand, right? Yeah, you get a shirt for
right,
like 10
right.
cents. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, we went there.
um inflation, you're saying it's not impacted by interest rates. I'm kind of still like wanting to figure that out, parse that out. And of course, we talked about MMT. Now, inflation.
Actually we didn't talk much about MMT
Well,
yet.
that's
We
what
can
I'm
come
about to
back
get
in.
into. I want to get it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
want to get
okay,
into.
okay,
Yeah, I
go,
want to
go,
get
go.
into the
Yeah,
MMT part of things.
yeah.
Like, so we're spending right now. We got the government talking about. I mean, $500 billion going additional into like war machines, like missiles and things like that, on top of the increase they had already budgeted for. So we're gonna have $1.5 trillion into building missiles and air defense and all these things that technically doesn't go into like, hey, well, infrastructure.
Right, right,
Well, and I see that what NATO is doing, they're like, hey, well, if you guys are going to take care of all of this, we can push a lot of this to our welfare state, ultimately push
right.
stuff into like our infrastructure and all the other stuff while you spend all this money. But now we're saying, hey, we're not wanting to do that anymore. You guys got to put your share in because, hey, we're tired of taking care of you.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, all this money that we're spending on all these different projects and a quote unquote the tariff revenue coming in to offset it, by the way. I know we're laughing. Um, when can we say like, hey, we got a spending problem here? I mean, the money it's not. I know what you're gonna say. I already know what you're gonna say, but we got like we're spending this over here, and we only have this much coming in because all these tax breaks. That doesn't ever break the system. I know you said budget deficit is a private sector or a government deficit, private sector surplus. That's still what you believe in regards to like the government spending and the money going to the private sector.
I mean, it's not what I believe, it's what accounting tells us.
Okay.
For every deficit, there's a surplus.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there is no way for the United States of America's trade deficit to China to not be China's trade surplus.
Got
I
you.
mean, it
Yeah.
just is. There's no way of changing that. Now, so to me, where the problem comes in, and you were describing it there implicitly, is where we spend the money.
Hmm.
I mean, there's more productive and less productive places to spend the money. Gosh, I mean, it seems like every election of my adult life, they've brought up infrastructure and then done nothing about it. And I mean that would be greasing the wheels of finance. It would be I think about I get ticked off sometimes when I think about this. I'll be driving to work and hit a pothole. I was like,
Hmm.
damn, why? This is supposedly one of the most advanced countries in the world. Certainly debatable because of the fact that I just hit a stupid pothole. But
Hey,
we
you
don't.
get a knock on your door right now. Say something crazy like
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. And remember, I wasn't born here.
No, no.
Uh, Although I don't think I think I'm just a citizen. I looked, I have the little piece of paper because
Yeah,
they didn't make me take a test or anything. I think because
yeah.
my dad was in the Air Force.
I got you.
Um, it's just, okay, I claim my citizenship.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but no, so, it's certainly where we spend money. And by the way, as a side issue with NATO, we weren't in NATO to be nice.
Yeah.
We were in NATO because we'd rather have the war fought over there than over here.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
see that thing every year about around June 6th about D-Day and about how this stopped the Germans.
Mm.
Actually, the Soviets stopped the Germans.
Hmm.
But if we hadn't, and they were already in Poland by the time we landed in France, so they
Yeah.
were on their way.
Mm.
So the Germans were going to lose. But where would the Soviets have? I'm sorry, I'm getting into military history now.
Yeah.
Where would
Okay.
the Soviets have stopped if we hadn't made it to the continent? I mean, they would have gone to the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been East Germany and then the Warsaw. It would have been all the way to the Atlantic. So so again, but my point being, NATO was in our best interest.
Hmm.
And that's
100%.
like when we cut all this money early on. You were talking about all the money we're spending, but we've shifted significantly on what we're spending it on.
Yeah.
Early on, we stopped spending this money on the democracy aid and in developing economies. And
Hmm.
that wasn't just out of the kindness of our hearts. That was like, hey, this African country has a really important mineral. Let's make
Oh,
sure they have a nice, stable government here. And if we get the hell
well,
out,
stable. You can say the
well,
stable all you want.
and
That's a
by
whole
stable
other
here,
conversation, my
I
brother.
mean not Chinese.
Okay, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. There you go.
And who came in after we left? The Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
We have
Hmm.
given up our positions on this sort of very short
Hmm.
term. I don't know. I call it. I never did do. I'm thinking of still doing it. I never did do this one cowboy economist I called drunken uncle syndrome. Um,
Okay.
it's all about at Thanksgiving. You got that drunk uncle
Yeah.
who starts spouting off about, if I'd been in one of them concentration camps, I would have just killed the guards and got out.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's stupid.
Yeah. No, you
Well, that's
wouldn't.
how
Yeah.
we're running policy right now. We're running
Oh,
policy via the drunken uncle syndrome, this kind of
yeah.
gut reaction to, well, I would have just done so and so. So anyway, but so it's how we're spending the money, not
Mm.
the amount of money we're spending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my whole concept. It's like, man, can we run some economics around how much money could we save ourselves if we push that back into say healthcare or back
Right,
into some or infrastructure or something?
right,
Because
right.
we're spending so much more money
Yeah,
on military than
yeah,
anybody else. And and let's just be real, we're arms dealers. United States,
yeah,
we're arms dealers,
yeah,
and that's how
yeah.
we make our that's a huge margin when we sell an F-35 and all the other stuff. So that's what we're doing.
Right.
We get it. But what do the American people get back for that? Yes, we get some security, but for that F-35 you just sold for whatever margin, Lockheed Martin, what
Yeah.
do we get back for that? Because we subsidize a lot of your military equipment. I don't know.
Well,
That's
I
I don't want to
think.
get into politics, but that's just where my head is.
Well, it's if we're going to discuss something significant, I
Yeah.
don't think we have a choice.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
So yeah,
ahead.
well, this whole thing about the Doge, first of all, the Department of Government Efficiency, and it was really just about shutting stuff down. It wasn't about efficiency,
Yeah.
because we need the government to be a net injector of income.
Hmm.
Just like I said, you're talking about before, when the government has a budget deficit, then somebody must have a budget surplus, and it's
Yeah.
the private sector. The last time the government had a budget surplus was under Clinton,
Hmm.
and private sector debt skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And so this was it was not, now, that doesn't mean just spend money wherever, build a
Mhm.
dam on a dry riverbed, because as you pointed out, we have needs. All right.
Yeah.
So, but it's this whole running the government like a business. That would be like I'm going to play quarterback like I'm a cleanup hitter.
Yeah.
It's not the same job. It's
No, it's
not
not
the
the same
same
job.
job. So,
Mm-mm.
you have a different set of rules and a different set of considerations. For a business to run the government like a business means I want to generate a profit.
Hmm.
Uh, and so that means I'm going to put up tariffs. I'm going to take over Venezuela. I'm going to get this oil. I'm going to take over Greenland.
Yeah.
That this is the mindset. Whereas the government is not supposed to do things that are profitable. We already
Hmm.
have a whole sector that does things that are profitable. It's called the private sector,
Yeah.
right? So
Now you're competing with them. Makes no sense.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. What if we started up government cabbage farms? Well,
Hmm.
that's screwing over the farmer that
Hmm.
is growing those themselves. The government is supposed to do things that are socially beneficial, but not profitable. Not
Hmm.
profitable. So that's why we have, the military is an example of it's not profitable, not in terms of, if it were profitable, there would be private sector armies going around, that comes from our tax dollars. I know you got profit from being one of the contractors,
There
but
you
that
go.
profit's not coming from the private sector. It's
Exactly.
coming from,
Yeah.
and educating poor people. Where my
Mm.
wife taught for years and years in Everman, Texas, and not a lot of money down there.
Yeah.
I remember they passed some law back in like the mid 90s. They called it the Robin Hood Act or something like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
where they took the money from the richer district and gave some to the poor district. Well, my wife's school, you know what? One of the big things they did, they put carpet down in the library so it would be quiet. It wasn't like they were like, "Oh, we're going to build a stadium now." I was like,
Yeah.
"No, man, they were just going to do something, that the rich schools don't even have to think twice about." So
Yeah.
anyway, you should do things that are socially beneficial but not profitable.
Yeah.
So we don't need the tariff revenue. We don't need it.
Hmm.
And the idea that it's going to give us the money back to do how, spend how we want to. Well, but then that's still going to be when we spend it, it's going to go into the private sector. It's still going to be stuff that's just profitable. What we're
Yeah.
really doing is we're trying to privatize, we're trying to get rid of anything in the government that is just socially beneficial and then privatize whatever we can. We'll
Yeah.
privatize the schools. Well, same thing in the UK, and it has not worked out well.
Well, you talk about privatization, and we're seeing it here in Texas. I mean, every road you go on is a toll road now, man. It's like, come on, man,
Right,
what's going on? Yeah. Yeah.
right, right.
Uh,
It used
uh,
to be that, from what I understand, it used to be it's going to be a toll road for the next 10 years. Then we'll have it paid off, and then we'll switch back. But once you're the person receiving that income,
yeah.
then you're going to talk to Greg Abbott and say,
Yeah.
hey, sure would be nice to keep this going. And by
Yeah.
the way, here's a check for your campaign. So uh,
Couple more questions, my man. This has been phenomenal as
yeah.
always. We're talking MMT, we're talking inflation, we're talking $39 trillion of debt, and we're talking about the current administration and the numbers coming out of the current administration.
Mm.
I'm going to ask you, my friend, being an economist, should we believe them?
We've had this conversation in the department, and we just don't know. We simply don't know what to believe anymore. And of course,
So
that's
that means they're
kind of
winning. That means they're winning.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It has always been the case. I teach a class on how to interpret economic data,
Hmm.
uh, and so that was last semester, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you all.
Hmm.
Because I don't know whether these numbers are believable anymore. So how can I tell you to use these data to forecast future economic activity, sure whether or not there's any validity to them?
Hmm.
It used to be that developing economies, you can't trust their data. It's
Yes.
very, very political. I wrote a paper once years ago on Mexico, and I needed unemployment data.
Hmm.
And I couldn't use Mexican unemployment data because apparently there's no unemployment in Mexico, according to Mexico. So I had to find somebody that had estimated it, and use
Yeah.
that. Whereas developed economies are generally very honest about
Hmm.
their data because they really want to use those data to make adjustments in policy, and that's just not true anymore. I don't
Hmm.
know what's going on. So
Yeah. I,
anyway,
a funny story. So I was at this event. They were talking about like talking their book again, and
right.
they were talking about CPI and what it means and all sort of stuff. And I raised my hand and said, "You do realize that the next 7, 8 months of CPI are just irrelevant right at this point because there's
Yeah.
a zero bound in October." Well, yeah, they're just going to they're going to estimate it. I said, "Oh, thank you. Estimate those numbers, and then
Right.
we'll figure it out when we can
Because it's
talk more."
so easy to do that. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. And I said, and you do realize there were only 3 inputs in October, and
Yeah.
those inputs happened to be downward to show
Right.
better.
Right. Right.
I said,
What a coincidence.
what a coincidence. I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand how people just are like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, sure.
Well, it's because people are nowadays filtering their news source.
Uh,
Um,
and I try to be
so
unbiased, man. I
yeah.
literally try, and I'm trying my best. And I'm
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
No.
no, 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 no. Yeah, no, I mean, if the only thing you ever hear is that everything's going great and that makes you feel good, and so I continue to watch your channel,
Mm-hmm.
then it's not like back during the Vietnam War when Walter Cronkite's word meant something to the
Yeah, yeah,
entire country. Uh,
yeah.
and so, we've got three sources of news back then: ABC, NBC, CBS, and it was they weren't. I guess for news was different back then,
Mm-hmm.
and they took it seriously that I'm trying to sort of come up with serious news stories, whereas nowadays they're marketing specialists,
You know what
and
scares
so
me the most? We believe we're a capitalist society, and we believe that competition is going to bring down pricing, and we believe that companies will use artificial intelligence. And by the way, that's a whole nother podcast. 'Cause I don't think it's artificial or intelligent at this point. I just think it's
yeah,
yeah. You gave me a better way to search the internet. Thanks, man. You know this is all
right,
great.
right, right.
Of
That's
course, there's
right. It's not
agents out there. There's people doing some
right.
real stuff, but the
It's not
majority of us,
intelligent.
yeah,
It's
it's
a
just
really, really good spreadsheet program
it,
that can pull stuff out.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the myth is, well, they're going to use this and they're going to bring down the cost because they don't have to hire as many people. And therefore, that cost savings is going to go back to you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
when does that happen? When does that happen? That just means
Yeah.
higher margins. If the fiduciary standard states, if our guy, what was Milton Friedman says, the most important thing is shareholder wealth. If that stands, then they're going to say, no, we could create higher margins, give them back to the shareholders. What
If
say
the,
you on that, man? Like, do
well,
you think
if
that
there,
AI is going to bring down costs and they're going to give that back to us all of a sudden?
Well, here's the first problem, and that is that you've got people out of work now. So, yay, those prices I can't afford are lower than they used to be. Yay. And so, as a consequence, that doesn't really, help terribly much. I will say this: if there's a lot of competition in that industry, then they will start cutting each other.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um,
Or buying
but
each other out, just buying up the
yeah, well,
small. Yeah,
that ends up doing the opposite.
yeah.
Um, and so, I mentioned there have been a bunch of studies on the inflation that
Mm-hmm,
occurred over the last, I don't know, 5 years. And the one that I had been kind of reluctant to jump on the bandwagon of firms have just held their prices up.
mm-hmm.
But actually, a really careful study that was done, advanced statistical study, said, no, that's exactly what happened.
Uh,
That when there was a chance to jack the prices up during the shortages of COVID, their margins have gotten bigger and bigger. So that when their costs fell, now it's got to be an uncompetitive industry. If it's a competitive one, then they'll have to cut with each other. So
mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I got my partner
No, it's
with
all
me
good. No,
now.
we're
So
good.
yeah, here he
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Hey.
He likes to. Well, he knows when I'm on Zoom, so I already had a chair pulled up for him.
No, no.
Um, but yeah. I mean, well, like computers have gotten cheaper and cheaper. At least they did for a long time. I think that's kind of settled off now with the
Mhm.
AI causing an increase in demand. So yeah, those of us who ended up, in jobs where we had a decent level of income, we were a lot better off.
Yeah.
I think about these poor devils who are driving around these Amazon trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I order something from Amazon, I feel a little guilty
Yeah.
uh, that, these people I am benefiting from their labor and from their lack of security in their job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So there's a lot of problems going on right now, and I don't see us even beginning to think about addressing the ones that are real, as opposed to
Yeah.
the ones just made up.
Yeah. Here's my last question because again, I love these conversations. We talked about inflation. We talked about MMT. We talked about we're not going to become Japan, even though I think we're getting
Yeah.
closer to that precipice than we
Yeah.
are. And we talk about where we're spending the money in our economy. Like, I mean, we're yes, it's good to spend money because of government deficit, it's a private sector surplus, but where is that money going? Right? It's not going
Right.
back
Right.
to individuals. And because these people think like business person, people, social issues don't make money.
Yeah.
Me giving
Yeah.
this dollar to Samantha over here is not going to do anything. But I wholeheartedly agree with that because I think about it. Well, if the government gives somebody a dollar,
Yeah.
even if they gave them that dollar, they're going to go out and spend that dollar, and that dollar is going to create more dollars, more dollars, more dollars, more dollars.
Right. Right.
And even the argument, they're going to take that dollar and they're going to sell that dollar for 50 cents because of benefits
Yeah.
SNAP benefits or whatever. That's fine because guess what? They just created $1.50. They gave this person 50 cents. They gave this person a dollar. That person's going to spend that dollar somewhere else. I mean, it's like
Right.
you pick that 50 cent, that 50 cents out of savings or somewhere. So
Right. No,
I think it's money
that's a
multiplier.
it's a big bang for your dollar,
Mm-hmm.
bang for your buck when you give money to poor people.
Mm-hmm.
When you give it to rich people, um, the top 20% of income earners spend about 60% of their income.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom 80%
Spend more
spend
than
like 95. And
or
I mean, the lower you
120% or
go,
100 they spend more than they make.
that's right. I mean,
Yeah.
the lowest 20%
Yeah.
spend like 120% of their income because they're
Yeah.
also getting benefits from somebody. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, the real place where we need to be spending money is on education, which we're
No.
starving. We are intentionally starving it so that it fails, and then we can take it over.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
That sounds
I,
familiar, by the way.
yeah, I have a,
Every yeah, no matter what history you go back to, that's how it all starts. That's how communism started.
yeah,
Mao, education, boom, news, boom. It all, anyways.
yeah,
Aside, go ahead, go
it's
ahead, go ahead, go
depressing.
ahead,
Well,
go
I have
ahead.
a colleague from Jamaica, and she said it never. Developing economy,
Yeah.
and we're becoming more like that every day.
Mm-hmm.
In her country, when she was growing up, and she didn't realize it at the time, and she looks back on it now, she's like, "Oh hell, I guess that's right." Her family was fairly well off.
Mm-hmm.
So, money on education in Jamaica is oriented towards higher level, like college.
Mm-hmm.
They don't spend that much money, relatively speaking, relative to us,
Mm-hmm.
on public, on sort of, first through
Mm-hmm.
eighth and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, you know why that doesn't matter to the rich people in Jamaica? Because they didn't go to public school. They went to
Yeah.
private school. So she
Yeah.
always went to private school. But then once she got to college level, now this is a concern of the rich people in Jamaica because their kids are going to college. And
Mm-hmm.
University of West Indies is a really nicely funded public, education for
Mm-hmm.
college students in Jamaica. So, we're doing the same thing. We're like, well, my kids aren't going to Bishop Elementary in Everman anyway, so we can
Yeah.
starve to death. And by the way, it's their fault they're not doing well. Even though mom and dad are each, doing a couple of different jobs, and as Melanie's my wife's principal once said, for many of our students, the highlight of their day is being at school.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it sure as hell wasn't the highlight of my day.
Yeah.
For me, it was going home and playing out in the yard, that sort of thing. But when you have a family, situation where mom and dad or just mom or just dad
Mm-hmm.
are working themselves to death and so forth, then school is the most stable part of this kid's life.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the place where we create a real sense of citizenship, of morality, but we're not doing that. I mean, so if you want to cut down on the prison population, you don't spend more money on I'm not saying defund the police, but I'm just saying, relatively speaking, you spend the money to prevent people from becoming criminals rather than tidying up the mess after it happens. But
Well, that'd be great if it wasn't a for-profit institution, right?
oh
So,
my God,
so
that's right too. That's right.
so
Hmm.
the penal system's for profit. I don't. And that's
Right.
just that's a whole nother conversation, my
Right,
friend.
right. Yeah,
Dude,
yeah. It's in their vested interest to make sure that marijuana is still illegal, so they can put everybody in prison. It's okay to go have a bottle of Jack Daniels. That's fine. But anyway, what a world we
so
live in. Thank goodness we have all the answers, Kevin.
but I love these conversations.
Uh,
You have answered everything I needed you to answer. I mean, you said we're not becoming Japan. You said we're spending enough money. You said we're not going broke. You're saying the Social Security system is what it is, and it's always going to be there. Hey, I feel better, man. I feel better talking to
well, I put a should in front of each of those. So
you.
that there's no economic reason why Social Security should not be there, but we're liable to screw it up ourselves anyway. So we'll see.
Elon said no one needs a job. No one's going to be
Yeah.
working in the future. Everybody can just do what they want to do. And I said, hey, well, good for Social Security tax, right?
Do you know who else
another
made that?
tax.
Do you know who else made that argument, by the way?
Who's that?
Karl Marx. Um, his vision of communism was not the Soviet one. The Soviet one was really just an extension of their oppressive society they had underneath the czars, and now we have it underneath the Communist Party. But Marx's idea of what communism was a society in which the level of technology had increased so much that you didn't have to work unless you wanted to. And furthermore, he thought that the division of labor was a terrible thing to have done to people. Well, now you got to do this job if you're going to make any money. He said, maybe I want to be a poet in the morning. And maybe I want to go hunting in the afternoon, And so that's actually kind of ironic that, of course, in today's political environment, I guess it would be advantageous to me to start accusing Elon of being a Marxist. Because I can show you the exact passage in Marx where he talks about this, that, we should be free to live our lives the way we want to live them. And by the way, Marx thought capitalism was an extremely important stage of history. Mm-hmm. He thought it was the best stage of history so far. It was better than everything that came before it. Just wasn't good enough yet.
Yeah. And that's what's funny. when you look at all the stuff I read Marx, I read a lot of these guys. They said the same thing. They said feudalism, and it says, it goes from feudalism to
capitalism, right?
Capitalism, socialism, and then it's like a
right
a system there. It's like you always end up in like capitalism ends up in socialism, and it's like a big circle over and over and over again.
Right.
That's we as humans, and it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. But hey, thank you for joining, my friend. I always love these conversations. Get back to your day. Enjoy what you say. Enjoy what you do, man. And by the way, yeah, man, just these are just fun conversations.
And may the force be with you. I always enjoy. I've been looking forward to this, and I enjoyed it as always. And let me know when you want me to come back on next time.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
We had Dr. John T. Harvey on the call today, talking about inflation, talking about are we becoming Japan, talking about all things finance, especially with interest rates. How I just don't understand how they're going to impact employment, but what do I know? I'm just a investment advisor here running an RIA, but great insight from the podcast today from Dr. Harvey. As I always say, subscribe to the channel. Go and get my book, MLB to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at info@99capitalgroup.com. Send us your questions. Go to the website at www.99capitalgroup.com. Schedule an appointment. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, engage, and also entertain. Follow us on all social media channels at 99cap or at MLB to CFP, and subscribe to our Substack. Now what? It's important to know these things. It's important to understand what the economic data is telling us, and can we truly trust the data? Stay humble, stay safe, my friends. See you again soon.